Hi everybody! Happy spring! Today I'm going to show you how to paint a springtime scene. For the purpose of today's tutorial, I'm going to be painting on a sheet of plastic just in case anybody wants to recreate this on their window. You'll get a good idea of what it's going to look like. As you can see across the bottom, I've put a long piece of tape. This is just to ensure that we have a nice clean line at the bottom of our finished piece. So, what you'll need to get started is your palette. I always just use an old yogurt lid when I paint. As you can see, I've got some black, some white, and then my three primary colors. So I've got blue, yellow, and red. For brushes, you'll need your big brush or your Papa Bear brush. It's always nice to have a few options for a medium or a Mama Bear brush. I like to have a flat one and then more of a rounded, pointed one, but whatever you have will do. And then a little Baby Bear brush for any detail work that you might be doing. All right, let's get started. So we're going to start with a light blue kind of sky background. This is totally optional. You can just leave your background clear if you want to see a little bit more out your window. But I'll show you another option if you want to add a little bit more color. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a big scoop of my white and a little scoop of my blue, and just on the side of my palette, I'm going to mix those two together to get kind of a light sky blue. Now it doesn't need to be perfectly mixed because I kind of like when there's some variation throughout the sky, some darker blues, some lighter blues. So as you can see, it's not perfectly mixed on my brush. Then what I'm going to do is go in starting right in the middle and use kind of messy crisscrossing motions like so. So my scene is going to kind of take up a big oval portion, and you can totally kind of change the shape or the size depending on your window, depending on what you're working with. And as you can see out near the edges, it's going to be kind of messy, crisscrossy. I like that because it looks like something you've painted, but you can always make it a nice clean circle. You could do tape all the way around so you get that nice clean line, or you can leave in the brush strokes. You could blend it out a little bit. Maybe I'll try that. Wet my brush, dry it off a little bit more, and blend away some of those edges just to get a nice base. This really doesn't need to be perfect because we're going to be covering it up with lots of fun, cute spring imagery. And then just go back over so your brush strokes are messy. You don't have to worry about having perfect brush stroke lines when you're doing messy brush strokes. So, rinse off your Papa Bear brush, and the next thing you're going to do is we're going to start some color mixing. So, with that blue and the yellow, does anyone know what color I'm going to make? Blue and yellow should make a nice green. Now when we're doing our base here, our grass, we want our first layer to be a little bit darker because we'll add in some highlights later, and that'll just give the grass some nice depth. So I'm even going to add in just a touch, see, just on the corner of my brush, of black, just to give it some darkness and some depth. My advice is to always start with a little bit of black because you can add more, but it's really hard to take it away once you've added it. So once you're happy with your dark green, kind of olivey color, take your brush, and as you can see, I've got a little bit of yellow, a little bit of black, a little bit of green. That's okay. The rest can kind of mix in on our canvas or our glass or our plastic. So right along the tape, using some back and forth motions, I'm going to start to create our grassy kind of meadow. Now this doesn't need to be a perfectly straight line. In fact, it's better if it's a little bit wonky and a little bit curved, because it's rare. No lines in nature are perfectly straight. And it can be kind of messy too. Okay, so there's the beginning of my grassy meadow. And you'll see later when we take this tape away, we're going to have such a satisfying, nice, clean line. I'm excited. Okay, so that's going to be it for our Papa Bear brush for a while. You can go take a nap. And the next thing we're going to work on are some clouds for our spring sky. So with your Mama Bear brush, you're going to dip into just some pure white. Dip, dip, dip. And then we're going to make some swirls in the sky. So for clouds, I like to have kind of a mountain peak somewhere and then kind of swirl it out. Maybe you've got kind of an upside down V shape with some swirls. Again, does not need to be perfect. Once you've got your little mountain in the sky, you're going to take your brush and you're going to wipe it off. You don't have to rinse it. In fact, it's better. The drier your brush is, the better. And then with that kind of clean brush, you're going to just go along the bottom and do some swirly motions to blend in that cloud. So I like to, with my brush kind of vertical up and down, do my swirly motions and then turn it horizontal and maybe go back and forth a little bit. Oh, I've got basically no paint left on my brush. You can go back in and add some highlights to the tips of your clouds. Or you can add in maybe another cloud just beneath it. And then you're going to always go back in with a clean, wiped off brush and blend out the bottoms of your clouds. Try to avoid touching the tops. You want those to stay vibrant white and floofy. And then you're going to blend sort of down in the body of the cloud. So I've got a few on that side. Again, these should be totally messy, totally not perfect. Just some random squiggles. And then you wipe off your brush and blend it out. If you have a little paint left on your brush, you can add some random kind of white streaks through the sky. Those could be clouds that are further away. And I'm going to, just for fun, you probably won't even see it at the end, but I'm going to add another cloud kind of connecting with this one near the base. And do a little blending. Oh, I should have wiped off my brush. Blendy, blendy, blend. There. And you can kind of go back in as the layers dry, add a few more highlights just to the kind of tops of your clouds. And we might go back in at the end with our baby brush if we want, maybe to give more detail sort of in here, some more highlights, do a little bit more blending. But I'm okay with that right now. I think it looks natural. So we can put away our kind of square-tipped Mama Bear brush. If you have a rounded tip Mama Bear brush, I would use that. If not, you can totally use this guy. You just want to make sure you clean it off really well. And you're going to dip into the black paint. Now we're going to start some cherry blossom trees. So, if anyone watched the winter scene tutorial I did a while back, we painted some spruce trees. And you're going to use a kind of similar technique with these cherry blossom trees with a little bit of a variation I'll show you. So, at the bottom here, we're going to start with the most pressure on our brush. And as we go up the page to the top, we'll slowly release some of that pressure. You'll also notice that this line is quite a bit more curved than our spruce tree lines. It's kind of a banana shape. Then you're going to go right next to it. Start with that firm pressure, slowly releasing it till you've got kind of an X there. I'm going to take a little bit more black paint and just fill in the bottom of my tree trunk. Make some roots. And don't worry too much about this being perfect because it'll be pretty covered up by grass right away here. If you'd like, add another tree to the other side, just using that same kind of technique, applying the pressure hard at first and then slowly kind of lifting your brush away in those curved lines. Ta-da! Okay, and one more like this. Okay, while we let our tree trunks dry, I'm going to give my brush a little rinse. And we're going to dip into some of the red paint. Now, you're just going to have to go with me on this. It's not going to make sense, but it'll come together in the end, I promise. So, you're going to paint, an oval shape in the red right here. And let's do another red oval up here. And depending on your paint, my paint is not the most pigmented, so I might have to let it dry and just do a few layers to get a nice red oval there. Take your brush, give it another little rinse, and we're going to dip back into that black. Now, right above your two red ovals, I want you to paint a small black circle. Oops. Okay, and above this guy, a small black circle. Okay. Now, while these dry, I'm going to leave you in suspense as to what they are. We're going to go back to our trees. So don't worry about rinsing your brush. It's okay if it's got a little bit of black on it. Now you're going to dip into the red and maybe mix it around on your palette a bit until you've got a really nice dark burgundy sort of color. This is going to be the base, the dark that will show light on our cherry blossom trees. So once you're happy with kind of a nice deep maroon color, you are going to go back and forth, tap, 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 across your tree trunk, starting about halfway up. Back and forth, and you see how I've got a lot of space between where I'm pressing. I'm not overwhelming the tree with lots and lots of leaves. I'm just kind of laying out the shape that my tree is going to be. So see why your clouds don't have to be perfect? Because most of them are going to be covered up anyway. Okay, now going over to our tree here, we're going to do that same tapping motion, back and forth, back and forth. I think this tree I'm going to make a little bit bigger, a little bit rounder. And this tree is going to be a little kind of flatter and longer. Okay, so there's our first layer of our cherry blossom trees. Now we're going to come back to this once it's had a moment to dry. And for now, we're going to go back to our mysterious red blobs. Any guesses as to what they're going to be yet? Okay, with your Mama Bear brush, dip into that black paint. Now, starting just kind of where the black circle and the red oval meet, you are going to paint, I would call it sort of a football shape, if I had to put a name on it. Now, you could do, this part I'm doing black here, you could do in blue, you could do in brown, same with the tree trunks. I don't know why I chose black. I think it can be kind of sharp sometimes and kind of neat looking, but you get creative with the colors. And if you want some more kind of lighter springy colors, do that as well. We're going to do the same thing over here, just starting at where the red oval and the black circle meet. We're going to do that football shape. And you see how it covers kind of half of that red oval, but leaves lots of it still showing. Ta-da. Anyone have any ideas? Well, you're gonna have to wait to see if you don't know yet, because we're going back to the trees. With that nice clean Mama Bear brush, we are gonna go in with just some pure red, and I might need to reload my red here. We're running low. Dip, dip, dip. And it's always nice to, when you're doing this kind of leaf technique, do a few jabs down on your, a few pokes down on your palette first. Do a few taps down on your palette first to get some of the paint off. And then go in and that same back and forth, but this time a little higher. So we're going to leave some of those dark blossoms still visible below. And we're going to start our shape a little higher this time. Back and forth, and you'll see more and more of the back will start to get covered up, but still leave some of it poking through if you can. It's kind of nice. It gives the tree the illusion that there's some sun or some sky kind of poking through. Okay, and I'll just dab, dab, dab on the palette a few times, and then I'll go into the tree, and I'm just going to do that same back and forth, back and forth. You might have to reload your brush a few times. That's totally cool. Voila. Now you might be thinking, these look like some pretty fall looking trees with red leaves. Don't worry, they're not going to stay red forever. The next step, and you don't have to rinse your brush for this, so you can stay with a little bit of red on it. You're going to mix in some of that white until you get a really pretty, soft, sort of pinky color. Like a pastel pink, kind of like that. And then we're going to go back over one final time. And it's okay if it's not perfectly dry, because I think it's okay if some of the red mixes in with your light pastel pink. And same thing. We're going to start up a little higher and then just do those back and forth motions to get our beautiful cherry blossom tree. Ta-da! Oh, there. That's really white. That's okay. Okay, and with more of that pink on the other side. Just, see, I'm going back and forth, but it's not perfectly straight lines. It's kind of random, the shape that I'm going in. There. And once you're happy with it, stop. And if you're not happy with it, keep going. Add in some more dark parts and highlight them with light. Just keep adding layers until you like what you see. If some areas have too many dark leaves showing, you can cover them up with some light pink leaves. There. Now, I'm going to assume that this is kind of a windy day and that some of our cherry blossoms might have fallen to the ground. So back with my darker kind of reddy pink, I'm going to just dab some fallen cherry blossom leaves with the dark pink first, and then I'll go in with my light pink to kind of give it some highlights. Like so. In the grass, around the tree trunk. There. One more thing you can do to add some dimension to your tree trunk is dip that brush into your white paint and then kind of pat it off on your palette so that there's just a little bit of white paint. And very lightly, you can kind of paint some highlight lines. And if you just brush very lightly, you'll see you're not going to get a perfectly straight line. You'll kind of get a series of broken up little white lines that might give you that illusion of a tree trunk and the texture on a tree trunk. Ta-da. I'm adding a little more black on this side because I might have gone a little overboard on the highlight. It's starting to look like a skunk tree. That's okay. You can always go back in and adjust. Okay. Now, back to the mysterious blobs. With your baby brush, and for the first time this whole painting, we're going to dip, oh, that's a lie. I used it to make green. But this time we're using just the pure yellow. Okay? For this black circle, we are going to add a small yellow triangle sticking right out the bottom. And on this one, we're going to paint 2 yellow lines in kind of a sideways V. Can anyone guess what they are yet? They're robins. Cute little springtime bird. So this one's got his beak open because maybe he's singing a morning tune, And this one has his beak closed, and you'll see why in a second. With that yellow paint, you can add some little feet. Okay, and then you're going to dry off your baby bear brush or wipe it off on a piece of paper towel. And then you're going to dip into that pure white. We'll give this one an eye to see, and this one an eye to see. And then with my brush still with the white paint on it, I'm going to mix in a little tiny bit of red to get that pink again. And then in this robin's mouth, he was an early bird because he got the worm. Poor Mr. Worm. He's about to be breakfast. Ta-da. Okay, now these details are totally optional. If you're happy with the way things look now, you can just leave it as it is. But if you're feeling creative and like you want to add a few more things with your baby brush, you can make a little bit more green and a lighter green, more yellow than blue when you mix your colors. And you can go back in and kind of add a little bit of texture to your grass. Okay, maybe there's some grass around where Mr. Worm is getting slurped up. Around the feet of the robins, just to add a little bit more dimension. Around the roots of the trees to kind of blend them in a bit. Okay, and then clean off your baby bear brush. Dip into just that pure red paint. And then you can go back into your trees and add some little individual cherry blossoms. So I do this by kind of starting on the outside, moving in, and doing a little kind of star shape there. There's one. There's two. Maybe I'll add one more over here. And like I said, maybe it's a windy day. So maybe you've got some petals sort of floating in the wind. And I'm gonna do another here. Oops. Another here. And I'll just leave it like that for now. Wipe off your baby bear brush and dip into that white. Now, just over top of the red blossoms that we just painted, you're going to paint some tiny little white lines just inside to kind of make your cherry blossoms pop. And it's okay if you had a little bit of red on your brush still, because it'll make the insides look nice and pink. Ta-da! So there is our little springtime cherry blossom robin in the morning scene. I'll remove the tape at the bottom so you can see the nice clean line. And like I said, if you want to do a tape line all the way around, be my guest. It'll give you just a crisp, clean piece of art. Ta-da! So I will remove the piece of plastic from the cardboard, and I'll insert a picture of the final piece hanging up in the window so you can get an idea of what it might look like hanging in your window. Thank you for watching, and I can't wait to see what you guys try. Thanks.